What if I told you that Endeavor becoming the Endeavor that we know, like the bad one, is not entirely his fault? In fact, one of the reasons why he becomes the monster that he becomes, and one of the main reasons, it's actually the fault of the hero system and All Might. And also maybe the fact that he wasn't supposed to be a hero at all. In fact, he's literally so built different that maybe he should have put himself in terms of like athletics or something like that, or sports, because of just how built different he is. The thing is, when you think about Endeavor and who he is, this is an individual who at some point decided that he wants to become the #1 hero. No problem. It makes sense actually if you kind of think about it, because he has a quirk. Now, if you kind of think about it as a normal person, if you have a gift or a talent and you realize that you're actually really good with it, naturally speaking, you'll want to follow your talent. Now, in that world, that's the hero. And if you think about it, becoming the #1 hero is probably like the biggest accomplishment for anyone who's had a quirk. And as such, it makes natural sense that this dude would take his quirk and decide, I'm going to become a hero. Cool. And the thing is, eventually he goes on this journey, which kind of makes sense. Now, to become the best hero, you gotta train, you gotta like incorporate all of the aspects of becoming a great hero. But if you kind of think about it, what does it take to become the greatest hero? I said in the other video in terms of All Might, it's pretty difficult because his definition and what makes him one of the greatest might not apply to anyone. It might just specifically apply to him and his story. So for Endeavor, what would it take? Well, the thing that's very clear about this dude, and I kind of have this sort of theory about him because he's just impressive, I think that nobody in the entire story works harder than Endeavor. Because look at him. Now, unless like they're using steroids in the story, then like, okay, maybe he's not the most hardest working. But if you look at him, this is a dude who works out intensely, because look at how big he keeps on getting over the years. He's very clearly in the gym, which shows you that he's a very dedicated dude, but also he's lean, which shows you that he's just got muscle, he's jacked. He works hard, but he's disciplined. But also, if you look at it, and now this is where we go into the hypotheticals, and I can be completely wrong. I've said it before, I'm no expert. If you kind of think about it logically, for him to always be this hot probably means that he sweats a lot, but we won't see it because like probably burns up. Now, if we think about it in terms of calories, dude probably goes through so many calories using his ability, which probably means he needs to eat way more than what we think, and also keep himself hydrated, which probably means that like this dude is so probably way more disciplined than a lot more people, because look at just the contrast between him and other heroes. Now, All Might is a big dude, but he has an ability that allows him to become a big dude. Look at the other heroes. They're jacked but relative, like lean, like Mirko is jacked, but no one is even comparably jacked like a dude like Endeavor. The other dudes who are jacked happen to also just be big dudes, but no one is as lean and as cut. Now I feel like I'm glazing him. But what I'm just trying to say is that Endeavor just shows you that he's a dude who's very disciplined, but also he's become very big physically, which shows you that he's a very dedicated dude, very focused. Now, it's very clear within his path that he wants to become the greatest hero, and everything might have been going his way, which is a very good thing for him, because, you know, he wants to be a hero. That's an awesome thing. And he's super dedicated, super focused, and you can see it's his body, his mentality, everything shows you that he's a very hardworking dude. He's talented, but also he's very disciplined and focused. Awesome. But then all of a sudden, All Might shows up. And there's a problem, because the thing is, him and All Might can compete. That's not a problem, and I'm sure he enjoyed it. The fact that he had this rival, it actually probably pushed him even more in a sense. But the problem is, the system works well for All Might and not him. The thing about Endeavor is that he doesn't care about public perception in a sense. In his mind frame, if he's the best guy in terms of just being a hero, that should be enough. And as you can see, he's worked on a lot of things that define Endeavor, but public personalities might not be his thing, and his social skills are trash. But as a public figure, he's not the best because he's Endeavor, and as such, he just seems like this dude who's super serious compared to another dude who's really funny, really likable, he smiles. People prefer him, and as such, he's more charismatic and just more favored. For Endeavor, how does he beat this? Because there's a problem. The thing is, Endeavor can outwork everyone. In fact, I think he might even probably be doing way more jobs than All Might. So he can get All Might in one score in terms of the hero system, which is probably the amount in terms of helping. But the problem is the public vote. The part where the people decide is something he can never overcome. And as such, despite how hard he works, despite how disciplined he is, despite everything that he does, he cannot overcome it. And unfortunately, you can't work on those things. He maybe could have wanted to become more fake, but given his personality, and that's the thing about him as to why he maybe should have been an athlete, he would have really thrived in sports where, especially if it's one-on-one, because he was probably going to blame his teammates if things didn't go well. But he's this dude who really gets you into the psyche of a dude who wants to be the best, and he's going to do everything to become the best. If we think about some of the things that he does that make him to be a very bad person, a lot of athletes actually do that. They're considered bad dads or bad individuals because they're so fixated on what they want to do, and they're so disciplined, and they almost basically expect people in their lives to make sacrifices for them while they go do what they want. And as such, I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but a lot of athletes have a lot of issues within their families and their relationships and their kids and things like that because they end up doing a lot of stuff, and some of the outbursts that come out when things aren't going their way. Like imagine you lose a game and like a final and you go back home and your kid's like being a kid and you're annoyed and you're angry. There's so many things that happen. So for Endeavor, we saw in his house a lot of things were happening because of that, because for him, he's losing. Despite what he's doing, he's not the number one. This is what he's been working for. He's disciplined, he works hard, he trains his quirk. What more can he do for people to eventually realize that he's the number one? Eventually, he will come to realize in the way future, nothing. There's literally nothing he can do. But before then, he tries everything an athlete will do. And as such, he comes up with the weirdest ideas, the most darkest things. He will go to the darkest place. And that is why also sometimes people idolize Kobe and those dudes. Kobe and them were like notoriously just mean dudes sometimes because they wanted it that bad. They were cool with their family, but I'm sure also there were moments where it's like, oh, this dude's just terrible. But people eventually started to appreciate it because they realized, damn, he really like put everything on the line to become great, which also eventually happens with Endeavor when people learn that, oh damn, he's really willing to sacrifice himself. But before that point, they never got it. And as such, he wasn't really favored. All he could keep doing is working hard, but it never worked. And as such, it creates the monster of the Endeavor that we see. Because of his mentality and his mindset, he goes to that dark place. And I think that My Hero Academia does show you that aspect of Endeavor because they want you to see that becoming a hero can sometimes become way more darker than what you think. Not everyone is solely like All Might or have their own different reasons. In terms of Endeavor, his simple goal is to be the best. But it works well in sports. But unfortunately, because of his quirk and his understanding and his talent and his discipline, he's perfect for being the number one hero. But unfortunately, he's at a point in time where All Might is there, where also All Might works really hard as well, but he's so likable, and it's something that you just can't train, something you can't get. Some dudes can try and learn to be more charismatic and more fun, but just some dudes have it. And for a dude like Endeavor, it will haunt him and annoy him because it's like, I will work for what I need to do to become number one. What can I do? And he just can't do it. And it probably irked him way more because of the fact that this charisma that All Might had, or just this perception that people had of him, was something almost intangible for him, where it's like, if he could, he would find a way to like do it. But probably even if he did try, it wasn't gonna work out. But also it never would fit with his personality, and as such, it would show him off to be more like fake. You know when like someone who's just like a bad person tries to be like good? It wouldn't have worked. And as such, when people view Endeavor, sometimes you think to yourself, man, you would have been better off as a villain. No, he was perfect to be a hero, and you would have been the number one because he's focused on being a hero and doing the job of a hero, which is saving people. That's awesome. The problem is because of the system and everything that happens and comes with the system in terms of popularity, he can't beat it. And as such, he gets annoyed by it because he wants to be the best. He wants that title. That's all he's been working for his entire life, that he sacrificed so many things and he can't achieve it. Which is also why when he eventually does achieve it, look at what he does. He wants the people to acknowledge him. His moments, that All Might moment where he throws his fist up and people scream for him. It's all he wanted. He shows you the vulnerability that even athletes themselves have. They want validation. That moment where they hold a trophy and their family or their loved one or whoever tells them you're amazing, you did it, we love you. That's what he wanted. But unfortunately, by the time he achieves it, he's done so many dark things that he can't go back. But also sometimes the way athletes think, they feel like if they change too much, it might cause them to not be the best anymore. It kind of keeps up with it to a certain degree until certain things start to show themselves and he learns what it is to be the number one. And as such, he changes a bit and he goes through certain things, which is actually caused by him, but he learns through his son. And that's why I'm saying that in terms of the story of Endeavor, if you think about it, this is one of the most interesting stories because it's of a story of a dude who just had that perfect athletic, like sports competitive nature, will work hard, will make the sacrifices. He's everything you would want from a hero, but the problem is it's not really suited for being a hero. And as such, it made him a monster for, well, good or bad reasons, which is also why I just find this entire story a little funny. Because if you do actually think about it, like I said, it's the system's fault. If the system only valued who did the most saving, he would have been number one. And he wouldn't probably have started to develop some of these dark thoughts and some of the things he does at home and some of the things of trying to craft the next number one or things like that. He probably would have abandoned them. Maybe. It is All Might's fault also as well, because it's like, damn, dude, like, let him win, which is not a good thing. It's actually not All Might's fault. And I find that to be really interesting. Anyway, I'll do other videos on other characters another time. I gotta do other stuff in between. But like, if you like these types of videos, if you like these types of things where I talk about mentalities of certain characters or just kind of break down certain things just with my own twist and my own thoughts. I'm not some sort of research like by the book dude, but just like what I saw and what I read and what I perceive. Just let me know if you like that. But either way, just leave a like and sub if you want. And yeah, that's pretty much it.